Hey, what's good? I'm Kinell, and this is Sinister Cinema, where we get deep into the guts of classics and new releases from horror and exploitation cinema. And I am dealing with a motherfucker of a bad hair day. Yes, safe. But anyway, let's talk about some fucking films, shall we? Today, I've got two films I want to talk to you about. They're very different, but intrinsically interlinked for reasons that will become obvious when I start explaining it. First one of these films I saw on Love Film, back when we used to fucking send DVDs via the post and receive them back via the post, which you took over from rentals and shit. I mean, that was like the most futuristic shit at the time, not having to go to the video shop to get a DVD. And now it just seems bizarre, the idea of having to walk to a fucking post box and wait a series of days to watch a film, and it might not even be your first choice of film. Crazy. I later find out that film was quite heavily edited for shit I'm going to talk about here. And the other film is the film within a film of the film that I rented from Love Film, if you get me. And I'll explain it if you don't. Yes, so today's films are Found and Headless. So let's get into the first one, Found.
My brother keeps a human head in his closet. At one point, it had thoughts and feelings, and it kissed somebody it loved. Now it's just a bloody head in a bowling ball bag. I hope I don't end up that way.
Do you want to be the kid that gets picked on? Or the kid that gets in trouble?
What if I hit Marcus back? What if it doesn't hurt him any?
Don't worry about Marcus. You shouldn't worry about anything.
You didn't have to do what you did, Marty. Kids get picked on. I'm sorry it happens, but it's not an excuse to attack someone.
You want to see something really scary?
Listen to me. Something is going to happen tonight. It's going to change everything. And I need you to stay out of the way.
Why?
Because I don't want to hurt you.
My life is starting to feel like a horror movie. And you know how they end.
Found, 2012, directed by Scott Shermer. This is kind of an interesting one because a lot of people consider it to fall into the extreme horror category, whilst it doesn't feature like loads of major cannibal holocausty shit, fucking animals being tortured, rape, all that kind of thing. There's not much of that at all in it, apart from in the film within a film bit. But it covers a lot of interesting areas from a psychological standpoint. And that's mainly where it becomes really disturbing. So it concerns this lad, who right at the start of the film, very first thing that happens, goes into his brother's bedroom. He's a young lad, 12 years old, his brother's a bit older, near enough an adult, and finds a bowling ball bag, which is fucking weird. Who the fuck owns their own bowling ball bag? I mean, fucking, who the... unless you've got some kind of Big Lebowski obsession, and to be honest, that should manifest in the form, as we know, of drinking White Russians. Fucking bowling is shit. We all know this. You know, the best thing to do is play the outrun machine, and then bowling's just something you do if you're not old enough to drink. And even then, there's better things to do. But anyway, he goes in to find a bowling ball bag, and there's a severed head in it. severed head of a black woman. Turns out there's a lot of severed heads keep turning up in and out of this bowling ball bag. His brother is indeed a serial killer mainly of black women. Now obviously this is some quite disturbing shit to find when you're fucking 12, as you may well imagine. But what's interesting is the way the kid describes it over a voiceover. He's quite matter of fact with it. It's this alien part of the adult world that he just feels he doesn't understand because he's a kid, is the impression I got. He's into horror movies, he's into graphic novels and that, he draws graphic novels, but that's very much something that's separate from real life of him. And I think that's what this film is really about, is the dichotomy of what people say influences behaviours. You know, things get blamed, such as violent movies, video games, comics and so forth, versus the things that actually do, like upbringing and the influences around you. Very much a nature versus nurture kind of thing, if you get me. Later on, you know, we meet his parents, and they have their secrets too, and the kid describes their secrets. In the mother's case, it's a box of hidden old love letters from an old flame. In the father's case, it's some schmutty magazines in his garage, and he describes them in the same way he describes the severed head. You know, it's just part of this, the secrets of adults, the things that kids don't understand effectively. This theme comes through a bit more later when he's picking up some videos at a video store, and he sees the shocked look of a guy who's in the behind the curtain XXX video section, and he comes out and he makes eye contact with the kid, and it freaks him out a bit because he's been caught out. He's been caught out in what he does. You know, fucking, he's obviously trying to have a crafty wank, and suddenly he's just confronted with this kid. The kid doesn't really acknowledge it, but it's the dichotomy of the adult world and the weird things that a 12-year-old would not understand. Now, this kid's being bullied at school by one lad. He's a black lad, and when he explains it to his parents, he gets sent home from school after a bullying incident. They don't really handle it particularly well. The mother is a bit too protective. She's a bit too protective, and she just wants to keep him home from school and prevent him from experiencing this bullying, which is ultimately a part of school life. And the dad is very dismissive. He's not trying to relate in any way. It's just an excuse for him to crank out his racism. He drops an M-bomb, which lets you know exactly where he is with it. And that's the whole point of this film, because he has a friend. His friend doesn't particularly relate to him either. The only person who really relates to the kid throughout this whole film is his brother, who is a serial killer. And ultimately, whilst his parents are worrying about the shit he's consuming, the movies and video games, no, not video games, graphic novels, while they're worrying about that, the real influence is that they're not connecting to him, but his brother is. Initially, he's quite angry when he sees him, but he's the only person who really talks to the kid at a level. He recommends him horror films, like the kid asks if he can borrow his brother's Hellraiser tape. He recommends Nightbreed and all, which is a good recommendation. Clive Barker, all that kind of connection. And whilst you could, his brother has obviously clearly mentally disturbed because he kills people. But the lad then goes on to question, like whilst watching this one film, a film within a film, Headless, we'll get to that later, he questions if that violent entertainment is what made his brother the way he is, and worries could it happen to him, but quickly passes it off by saying, well, no, I'm watching this shit and I can't even bring myself to hit a bully back. So that shows that it's a different way of interpreting things. Things carry on, things go to a head. His brother finds out that he knows about the heads and all this, which leads to a confrontation. And in that confrontation, the kid asks his brother, why do you do this? Why do you do this? And his answer, it isn't some kind of psychosexual thing, it's just racism, the learned behaviour from his racist father. and that's it. You got to realise the older brother would have been an only child for quite a way. He was exposed to that environment where his parents weren't really relating to him in the same way the kid did, but he didn't have an older brother to reach out to him. All he had was the learned behaviour of his father's racism. You cannot be turned into a killer by the media you consume, but racism can be passed down through generations by the influence of your parents, and that's the real sort of message of the film, I believe, at this. That learned behaviours come from toxic environments and toxic beliefs within a family unit, and the failure to relate to each other. You know, kids need someone relating to them rather than just being given instructions and being told information. And at this point, the kid, I can't remember his name, says to his brother, like, no, that bully that was bullying me, he is not representative of his race, he's just one guy acting alone. And I feel that's like quite a revelation for the brother, who the brother's very much a loner. He's not shown to have any friends or anything, and quite frankly at this point in his life he's murdered a lot of fucking people. So I think it's almost like a transitional moment where he realises that it's not black people that he is against. The thing that he really hates is his family. It's his father for imbuing this racism within him, you know, exacerbating on top of existing mental conditions which the mother probably ignored by trying to shield her kids from the world, rather than relating to them and understanding them and picking them up and seeing that he needed some kind of external help before he blossomed into a serial killer with racist beliefs. So at the end, no spoilers, but suffice to say, the shit pops off. Well, actually, I'll fucking spoil loads of it, so yeah, spoilers. Basically, he fucking ties up the little kid and murders both the parents. This is done off screen. And then comes in and tells his brother, don't worry, they can't hurt you anymore. And the kid can't really understand, because again, he doesn't understand the world of adults. But the brother is at that point still unable to articulate it, but what he's really saying is that how they fucked me up is what made me be like this, and I have now stopped them from being able to pass that toxicity on to you. And in a fucked up way, you know, he probably didn't save the kid, because fucking just because one brother turns out to be a serial killer doesn't mean they all are. But to him, that's what he feels he's done. He really feels that for once he has used violence to save something he loves, the only thing he's shown to love, which is his brother. So yeah, that's a crazy one. That's what I feel the film's about anyway. It's about the dichotomy of the bullshit that gets blamed for, be it Marilyn Manson being blamed for Columbine school shootings, be it, serial killers being blamed for watching the movies they watch. But, you know, there's references to pornography in this. You know, you don't look for pictures of naked women as a child and then turn heterosexual. You are heterosexual and then you look for pictures of naked women. You know, it's a symptom, it's not the fucking cause. And the same applies for any other sexuality. Maybe you'll want to look at naked dudes, safe. You can look at whatever else you want within reason and consent. But yeah, anyway, you get me. The media that you consume is not what influences your life, but a toxic family environment and toxic beliefs imbued at you when you're too young to know any different can drastically affect the whole of your life. So yeah, that was a bit serious, but that's found. Now, the more extreme bits of this, the bits where I think most things would have been cut out of this from the release I watched, I think there was like just under 2 minutes. I think it's maybe 98 seconds missing from the the UK DVD cut. I've seen the uncut one since. Yeah, safe. But I think it would have been from the part where there's a film within a film, for the film within a film being Headless. And yeah, fucking heads get cut off, fucking breasts get cut off, fucking breast wounds, chewing some kind of weird shit, eyeballs get scooped out, all that kind of thing. That would have been where the cuts went down, I would imagine. But this film developed a pretty huge fan base. I mean, not like blockbuster huge, but the people who really got it and understood what the film was trying to say were big fans of it. And a lot of them just said, we want to see this fucking Headless film also. And I believe it began as a crowdfunding thing, or maybe they had the idea, and the film within a film later on became a film in a similar manner to Machete or the Velocipaster. And so yeah, that's the film we're going to talk about next, Headless.
Hey, thanks for the ride, man. I really appreciate it. You know, you're my 13th ride this week. Kind of spooky, huh?
All that shit I was saying about that last film, about influences and fucking, general themes and analysing toxic family environments and all that. None of that shit here, or maybe there is, but really, this is just a fucking particularly extreme slasher done in a 1978 grindhouse style, and it's fucking cool. If you like that sort of thing. To be honest, if you're watching a fucking horror channel as obscure as mine for information, you know whether you fuck with the kind of film that involves severed heads getting fucked or not. So you fucking, and it's completely fucking binary. If you do fuck with that, this is a very fun film. If you don't, just don't bother. The other one I'd suggest, like, you know, if you're less tolerant of gore, the other film's worth sticking to. This one isn't, but it's a fucking blast. As I say, like fucking, I should mention the fucking legend that first put me onto this film, because it was my homie Pete Cashmore. Rest in peace to legend Pete. Sadly passed away now, flipping. If you follow me from Battle Rap, you know about the thing I did with the battle I did with Pamphlet at the Battling Demons for Pete's sake, with all the money going to depression, charities and all that kind of thing. But yeah, he's the one who put me onto this. I suspect he might have got put onto it by a man like Baron Mind. Shout out Baron Mind. He's the guy who gives me the tips for the really grimy stuff when I really need it, when I really want something off the radar. And I think it was him that sorted me out with a copy of this to watch. And yeah, this film, I don't normally take much notes, but the only notes I had for this was I was literally just doing a tally of every time a severed head gets fucked in this, and I stopped doing it eventually because it's a lot. Grizzly 70 grindhouse stuff, brilliant effects. They've really very authentic, like. And it's a proper sleazy fucking slasher. I will say that the kind of backstory they've given to the killer, who's just like walks around with a skull mask, finds women, cuts their heads off, various torture implements, shags the head. And not through the mouth either. You wouldn't really need to decapitate to shag through the mouth. Oh, there's other holes, baby, especially when you cut the fucker off. But yeah. It is kind of grisly. I do feel a bit of a cunt pointing this shit out, but you should know whether you need to watch this film or not. But yeah, I think they put a fair bit of backstory into it, in terms of like the killer in it is affected by something similar to what Henry Lee Lucas, the real life serial killer, would have gone through growing up. You know, he was heavily neglected. His mother was very fucking abusive. Fucking in his case, like, his dad lost his legs after falling asleep on some fucking train tracks and the train coming. Now that's some advanced state of fucking drunkenness. Like, that's fucking comedy drunk. If it hadn't, well, it would be comedy if it didn't end up so fucking dark for the situation. But yeah, he's like kept in a cage, and something like there's a kid that also is in a skull mask that the serial killer seems to follow. I think that represents the childhood identity that he could have been or something. But yeah, it's just a very, very splattery, extreme horror, grindhouse, sleazy, horrible fucking film. And if you fuck with it, you'll fuck with it. If you don't, you won't. You know which one you are. I don't have to tell you this. I wouldn't recommend showing this to anyone who isn't actively like that, but found, even though it contains some really dark bits, that film I would recommend showing to people, because there's some important themes in there, and sometimes the themes are more important than what should we call it, the gore, the gruesomeness. So like, sometimes gore is there because it's entertaining, sometimes it's a part of a wider, more important message, which I believe is the case with Found. So yeah, they're both bangers in very, very different ways. So yeah, that's my opinion on them. This has been Sinister Cinema. I'm Kinell. What should we call it? Click like down there if you like this. Fucking leave a comment if you've seen these films. If you haven't seen these films, let me know if you agree, if you disagree, any of that. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And if you want to follow me on the socials, it's at @Sinister_Cinema on the Twitter and @Sinister.Cinema on Instagram. I'm Kinell. Safe.